Hey everyone, welcome to the video. Over today's early MLB main slate for on DraftKings. Before we continue though, if you could leave a like, subscribe to the channel, I really appreciate that. You can also follow me on Twitter at cpen_16. And if you want a copy of the MLB model and the cheat sheet, so you're going to get like the pitching model and the hitters and get all the stats you need, hit me up on Twitter and I'll send you a link to to access this. It's just easier on Twitter instead of emailing, so you can hit me up on Twitter, or I'll try to put this in the description as well, but either way works. Alright, anyways, let's get into this slate. So, Blake Snell, 10,700. He's going to be the number one today. I know the Mets game. Well, let me just go over the impactful weather because it's actually kind of a lot today. So, okay. So, the Angels-Orioles game doesn't look very good. The Marlins-Mets game doesn't either. It's probably the worst one. And the Red Sox-Mariner doesn't look as good either. So, I just took all those players off the slate, which sucks because the two pitchers I was looking at the most were from the Marlins and Mets game. So, we'll make do though. So just an FYI if you're wondering why I don't have some of the guys like Syndergaard, Caleb Smith listed. So Blake Snell's going to be the number one just because of all the guys that are probably won't play today. So I think this is the obvious number one play, and it's going to be in Tampa, and it's versus a watered down Yankees lineup. And Blake Snell's just been elite this year, besides like maybe one or two games, but he's just been absolutely locked down, and he's an absolutely tremendous pitcher. So I think it's the number one spot, and it's a good pitcher's park as well. And then at SP2, I think we're going to have to spend down a little bit. So I don't mind Lucas Giolito. It's ugly wanting to play Lucas Giolito, but he hasn't been too bad this year. I think he struck out, at 8 strikeouts versus the Indians last time out. And that the Blue Jays have the highest K percentage in the league versus righties. And honestly, he's just been a little bit solid this year with a 29% K rate. And then Martin Perez, he's probably going to be more popular just because of how good he's been. I haven't listed third, though, because I don't really like using lefties versus Detroit. But he's been on fire this year. He's increased his velocity. He's starting to use his cutter more instead of just fastballs. And the MLB hasn't caught up to it yet, so he's confusing batters, and it's working so far. And so Detroit still strikes out 27% of the time versus lefties, so it's a decent matchup, and I do think the Twins win this game, so he should be in line for the win as well. And then at catcher, Mitch Garver, he's going to be the number one play, 4,800. It's going to be really hard to spend up for him. I mean, don't do it in cash, but unless you can. But I'm not going to. He's very expensive, but I love the Twins today versus Norris, as you're going to see later on. Then Francisco Cervelli, 2,700. He's just so cheap, and catcher position always sucks, so I always like punting. And he's a little bit better than the guys priced around his price range, so I'm probably going to flock to him. He's probably going to be pretty popular. Then Yadier Molina, 4,200. Brault has not been good versus lefties, and Molina has that's not true. He has a 183 ISO versus lefties. Hold on. Okay, so he's got a 183 ISO versus left-handed pitching. And then first base, Paul Goldschmidt, 4,300. He's very cheap in facing a lefty, where he has elite numbers with a 242 ISO. And then CJ Cron, 3,900. So these next two guys are probably my favorite plays, just based on price. And then so for CJ Cron, 3,900. So like I said, the Twins and Cron, I think it's Cron, right? I thought I've heard some people say Cron, but I'm pretty sure it's Cron. He has the highest ISO on the team versus lefties with a 262 ISO, and I do like the Twins, so he's probably one of the top home run threats from them outside of Nelson Cruz. Then Yuli Gurriel, 3,900. Astros are in an awesome spot versus Sampson today. He just can't strike people out, and he's a reverse splits guy who gets beat up by righties, and the Astros have a ton of righties in the lineup, including Gurriel, and he's hitting about probably 5th or 6th, so I think it's going to be plenty of RBI opportunity for him, so I really like Gurriel. Then at second base, Adam Frazier, 3,800. Frazier has good numbers versus righties, and Hudson gets beat up by lefties. I mean, he doesn't have a lot of power, but he makes a lot of good contact and doesn't strike out a lot, so I really like Frazier. Then Rougned Odor, 3,300. He's very cheap, and he has power versus lefties. He does strike out a ton, though, but he's going to be facing a rookie, so the Rangers might be able to get to him a little bit. Then Eddie Andrianza, 2,900. He gets near the bottom of the order, but if you need salary relief, I don't mind it. He's super cheap. He's a super cheap way to get Twins exposure. And then at third base, Alex Bregman, 5,100. He's possibly the number one play today versus Sampson. Bregg has elite numbers versus righties, and with Sampson not being able to K people and having reverse splits to righties, I think Houston is just in an awesome spot, and Bregman's probably the best play today, if not one of the top 3 or 5 plays. And then Yuli Gurriel, we already went over. Then Yohan Moncada, if you need it. He's going to be a lower-owned GPP play. Sanchez struggles versus lefties, and Moncada has a lot of powers as a lefty, and it's a good park for bats as well, so I don't mind if you want to use him. And then at shortstop, Carlos Correa, 4,900. There's not many shortstop options today, especially there's not really any cheap ones I saw. So it looks like you might have to spend up at shortstop today, because Zach Kozar would be a decent way to go cheap, but I don't think that game's gonna play, so that sucks. But just anyways, another Astro righty versus Samson, and then Jorge Polanco 5,200. I hate how expensive he is, but he's been good. And if you were stacking Minnesota, he's the main part of the offense, and he hits usually about second. So I don't see how you could leave him out if you're going to be snacking Minnesota up. And then Gene Segura, he's like the cheapest guy I kind of liked. He's not the most exciting spot, but there isn't much to at short besides the top two. And then at the high-priced outfield, George Springer 5,700. He's too expensive for me in cash games. I mean, it's a lot to pay for George Springer, but he has been awesome, and you can't leave him off full GBP stacks, and the whole lineup's really in play. Then Michael Brantley 5,500, a favorite here on this channel. You guys know that. I missed the days of him being 4,400. But sadly, they are over. He's just been so elite this year, and he's been hitting the ball really well. I think he's hitting about 340. He has over 10 home runs. And yeah, he just doesn't strike out. He always puts the ball in play, and he's going up against a guy that can't strike people out. And he doesn't strike out at all. So I mean, it just makes a lot of sense to me. I know he's a lefty, but Samson can still get hit by both sides of the plate. And then Joey Gallo 5,100. He gets the honor of facing a rookie pitcher, who I wouldn't be shocked if he welcomes him to the big leagues with a moonshot to right. And then in the mid-range outfield, Nelson Cruz is going to lead the way for me. He's one of my favorite plays if you can fit him in your lineup. I love Cruz versus lefties, and the Twins are in a great spot today. He has a near 300 ISO versus lefties and a 400 WOBA. Then Gregory Polanco 4,200. I like the lefties versus Hudson, and Polanco has some speed and pop in his bat, so I don't mind if I'm going to go to him, and he's decently priced as well. Then Bryce Harper 4,700. Junis is a home run prone pitcher to both sides of the plate, and I still think Harper's decently priced in the mid 4K range. And then in the value outfield, Josh Reddick 3,900. I think he's gonna be one of the more popular plays today, so he should be pretty chalky, just because he's gonna be batting projected to bat second, and Samson can get hit by lefties as well. And then Marwin Gonzalez 3,100. Another guy I think he's gonna be pretty popular. He's just too cheap, and he's an easy way to get cheap Twins exposure. He's projected to bat fifth in the early order, so there should be plenty of RBI opportunities. So I think he's a really good play today. And then we already went over the impactful weather. The top stacks for me are going to be the Astros, the Twins, then the two sneakier stacks should be the Cardinals and Pirates lefties. And I guess you could probably put the Rangers lefties in there. I don't think that's a bad spot either. I'll just add that in right now. Yeah, I don't think that's a bad spot at all. And then for the core plays right now, I have Snell, because I think he's just the clear ace of the slate. And then CJ Cron at 3,900, but you could swap him in and out with Yuli Gurriel. I think they're both awesome spots. And if you don't want to pay up for Bregman, I guess you could just put Gurriel in the third baseman and spend up elsewhere. And then I have Bregman at third, and then Marwin Gonzalez in the outfield because he's just so cheap. Anyway, guys, that's all I have for the video. If you have any questions, you can comment below. If any mothers somehow watch my videos, happy Mother's Day. And yeah, anyway, good luck today.